you fishers of men. In other words, let me put it this way. The Sea of Galilee was owned by Rome. And if you were fishing and you had 10, you caught 10 fish, possibly 7 of what you caught had to go to Rome in terms of taxes. So that would leave you with 3 left that you could live off of. And when the tax collector came by, they might even take an extra for themselves. They might end up with 2 fish. And so what Jesus was doing on one level was taking away the tax base from Rome and then moving these people into another vocation. And so all of the conversation about Jesus begins because he hit them where it hurt economically. And so a movement is born and begins. And so these young men begin to tell other people as he goes from town to town, things begin to shift. And that becomes the challenge for the church. Can we begin to reclaim the idea of being a movement and not simply an institution? Movements are organic. Movements aren't based on committees. Movements go where the need is. But if you are constantly in the position that I can only have ministry in the church building, then we are in major trouble. Because Jesus gives that model of having ministry that is outside of the 4 walls. And so we see the calling of these disciples, and we see this counter-revolutionary idea that we are in a post-Constantinian syndrome that is affecting the church. And if we are to become the kind of church in the future, in the 21st century, we must recognize that there is a major cultural shift. And we now have a generation that is raising the question, why the church? But yet simultaneously, they want the church to answer certain questions. They still have the same existential questions. Questions only that the church can bring forth. Questions that have answers to issues around love and hope and forgiveness and grace. Those are not questions that are being raised in the wider society that a generation is now struggling with. The issue of forgiveness and grace and justice. And the church should be the beacon of that. Now, an example of how to reclaim. Now, interestingly enough, this may sound like a strange example, but how to reclaim our mission is looking at some secular or businesses that have actually borrowed from the church for their success. One particular business in the U.S. that is now making its way through Zurich, that has borrowed so much from the church, is a particular organization known as Starbucks. Starbucks Coffee has borrowed so much from the church. It's like, what are you talking about? Starbucks Coffee is borrowed from the church. Starbucks recognizes, and they even have hired someone who is the chief of evangelism, because they believe that they want to make sure that Starbucks Coffee, the idea, when you think of it, you think of certain things. And what they want to do is when you come into Starbucks, they want to convert you. If you want to go somewhere else, that's fine. But they want to convert you in this way, that your experience at Starbucks is not the coffee we're selling. They say that we're selling an experience. That you can stand in line, have a conversation with somebody, get some free Wi-Fi, pay too much for coffee, also you can do that at Starbucks. But it's the idea of having community. And in this generation, so deeply, people want to have connection with someone else. Because we live in isolation, so we'll run to a coffee shop, we will run to a club, we'll run to a restaurant, we'll go to a movie, other places where we bump into other people and connect with people. And that is what is happening on the digital level. With Facebook, it's about connection. With Twitter, it's about connection. With blogs, it's all about how do I connect with someone, because I don't have community in my life. And Starbucks recognizes this. So we could have the best coffee in the world, but that's not necessarily what's going to bring people through the doors. We want people to come in and spend some time, hang out, have a conversation so that they will come back again. Not just for the coffee, but they're really coming back for the experience. If truth be told, you could probably find better coffee somewhere else. But the idea is that we're trying to build an experience. And the early church was a place where people came for connection. It was a place of experience, where I can become fully human in the midst of all of the challenges around me. And the church today is in desperate need of that kind of evangelism. Not the evangelism that says, you must convert. No, the kind of evangelism that says that we offer a particular experience so that you can experience a connection with God and the Spirit of God. That's the thing that attracts. That's the thing that people say, oh my goodness, I want to get connected. And where you see the church growing globally, that always happens. The church is growing in the global south. In the United States, every place south of the Mason-Dixon line, that's just the southern United States, the church is exploding. If you keep going south, move into whether it is the Caribbean, Mexico, Central America, South America, church is exploding. If you go to Africa, if you go to Asia, wherever in the South, the church is exploding. Because they recognize that the church is about an experience and a connection. I want to connect with God. Not just doctrine. Not just system. But how do I make a true human connection? And the church is the place where I am able to become fully human and also deal with issues that no one else will deal with, issues of love and justice. And that's the problem with the church. We have, how should I say, we have destroyed this idea of love. We've made it sentimental and not powerful. That love is the most powerful force in the universe. But here's the thing, that love and justice must always be connected to each other. Love without justice is nothing but sentimentality. And justice without love can easily become naked brutality. But when love and justice are married together, they produce a baby by the name of transformation and liberation. And that's what happens with love and justice. And so the church is the place where we proclaim love and justice. And the ministry of Christ is the model of love and justice. Not only will I love you, do I care about you, but I want you to be fully human. I want you to become who God is calling you to become. It is T.S. Eliot who tells the story of, he was quite upset. He saw a sign that said, freshly baked bread. He was really excited about this sign, freshly baked bread. And he goes into this business, and he thought he was going to find some freshly baked bread, thought he was going to find somebody baking some bread, but all he found were old signs about freshly baked bread. It was a sign-making establishment. And T.S. Eliot goes on to say that that's what's happening with the church. We have a sign that says one thing, but once people get in, they find out that there is no bread. That there is nothing that will feed my spirit and feed my soul. And so the church in so many ways that we're calling for this connection, this calling for this idea of love and justice, this experience. But then the other thing that the church is able to do that no other institution is able to do is that we are called in reference to beauty. Not pretty, but beauty. Beauty, I think it was Picasso who said it this way, that he talks about that all art is ugliness that allows you to see the truth. And that's what the church is in many ways called to do, is that we are called to bring beauty to the world. Not we're talking pretty, not talking about going to get some cosmetic surgery and all that kind of strange stuff. But we're specifically talking about the beauty of seeing people in their total humanity, seeing their flaws and their scars, but yet that simultaneously God saying that I see you with your flaws and your scars, but I don't see you as you are now, I see you as you can be. And that's what Christ does constantly, saying that I know what the world says to you, woman at the well, that you are to stay on the margin of society, but I see you better than this. I see you at an entirely different level. We are to bring purveyors of beauty, an experience and purveyors of beauty. And the church, in many ways, pre-Constantine was that place where you could bring your unique creativity. We would have a meal together. It might be in this house this week, in another house next week. And then we could bring our artistic creativity and create something that spoke about God, that spoke about our relationship with each other. We could do all of that. That we would bring beauty to the table. And people are desperately looking for those things that are beautiful. Whether it is music, whether it is the visual arts, whatever it may be, whether it is a spoken word or the poetic word that flows from someone's mouth, they're looking for that beauty. And so an experience that brings beauty to the world. And that was the experience that the disciples had, an experience with God that was bringing beauty to their lives, but was also simultaneously talking about their scars and their hurts, not sanitizing the gospel. We have a tendency to sanitize the gospel. Within the African American tradition, we have a way, I do it often, remixing the gospel. I do that when I'm usually preaching. I read the gospel and I give the OM3, that's the Otis Lost the Third remix. And that means just a different way so that people understand it in contemporary terms. And so often within the American tradition, people have sanitized the gospel and faith. Where it just seems like anytime someone talks about the church that all of a sudden, angels are going to start singing and things of that nature and all of that. But in reality, when you look at the gospel, when you look at the collectively, you see a lot of bruised characters who reflect humanity on so many levels. Real peculiar character, a gentleman by the name of Jacob, whose name, literally, he means trickster. He steals his brother's birthright. He comes from a dysfunctional family. Anytime that you try to steal your brother's birthright and your mother helps you, you come from a dysfunctional family. Okay, so here you have a gentleman who comes from a dysfunctional family